Bless you. Sorry, I just realized. Do it again.
RX Television on rxmuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition and Liquid Sunrays. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions, anything and everything in the bodybuilding world and anything and everything in life in general, it's all on the table. So we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, two significant deaths as we start on a somber note. One in the bodybuilding world, of course, with Hall of Famer Ed Corney passing away, and then either earlier this morning or last night, Mean Gene Okerlund of WWE fame also passing away at the age of 76.
You know, I met Mean Gene at one of these wrestling events that Triple H had gotten me backstage for, and he seemed, you know, when you see him in person, he looked like a guy that, how the hell did this guy get into wrestling? You know, it's just weird sometimes how people find a calling for themselves in life. And Mean Gene is like you, Sid. He reminds me of you. You know, he kind of got humble beginnings, and he just had a good voice, and he really, people liked him, you know, and that's really what it amounted to. And I think he had a great career with WWE. I know he left them for a while and came back, and, you know, but then he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. So obviously he'll be well remembered. I remember him growing up watching WWE. He was always the voice of interviewing all the guys. Of course, more relevant to the bodybuilding industry was the loss of Ed Corney, which I just did a little bit of an RX Muscle news update, kind of giving you my own insights into Ed Corney. And, you know, I knew him later in life after he had the stroke. I used to see him at all the shows. He'd be at the Arnold and the Olympia. He had a little booth there, usually sitting at the Europa booth. And I would always sit and talk to him, and we would take a picture together. We'd do a little interview together. And I'd always get him to hit a couple poses for me. And, you know, that's how I knew Ed Corney. Obviously, growing up, watching the Pumping Iron movie, you know, you're seeing the footage of him posing on stage and Arnold getting all excited about it. That's really how most people know him. But I knew Ed personally, you know, in his later years, and you know, he really, you know, people don't realize he had a stroke, and a lot of people had written him off like he was never going to, you know, come back from that. He was going to die from it. And he used the bodybuilding lifestyle to get himself back in shape, start walking again, and moving around independently. And he really accredits bodybuilding for saving his life. He lived probably another 20 years after that stroke. So, you know, while it was sad that he died, I think he lived a pretty full life at 85 years of age, and had a lot of notoriety in the bodybuilding world, and he'll always be remembered. So that's a great thing. You know, like I said, I don't mind, you know, it's terrible when a guy like Rich Piana dies because he's young. But when an older guy like Ed dies, I think we should just celebrate his life and all the contributions he made to the bodybuilding world.
What was amazing, just you scroll, you know, for anyone in bodybuilding fans, if you scroll through your Instagram or Twitter, any mention of Ed Corney seems to have a picture of whoever posted it with Ed Corney at either the Arnold or Olympia, and no one has anything but the best things to say about him. So RS Muscle, we send our best thoughts to Ed and his family. Let's go to the questions. The first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, you look shredded in your 1990 first show pictures. What was your diet and training like then? Is that something that you can post for us?
Yeah, I found an old picture from my first show. I didn't even know I had any, to be honest with you. They were, you know, it was back in the day when you had those cameras, like you'd have to develop the film, and you'd be like this big on stage. And they blew up okay. I took a picture with my cell phone of it, and then I put it on there just so that people can see that I came from humble beginnings too, and I was obviously in good shape. I was working with a guy, Vinny Carvelli, who was in the gym that I was doing personal training at one summer, and he kind of did my diet for me, and he tortured me basically. I was on the Stairmaster, like high intensity cardio, 15, 30 minutes a day, you know, just all out. He had me on very low carbs. I was eating like just protein and vegetables. I was so miserable. I remember telling, because I was walking around the gym just miserable, waiting for my next meal, which were not, they were very small meals. And I would tell everyone, I said, I will never do this again. I promise you. They said, no, you'll do it again. I said, I will never compete again. Nothing is worth going through this misery. And I remember it distinctly. And I remember when the show was over, obviously I got really shredded. I was only 168 pounds, but even the guys backstage afterwards who beat me, because I placed sixth, I didn't make top 5, which was very disappointing for me, but it motivated me to come back better. They all said to me backstage, they said, look, I know you probably just started, and you're definitely too tall for this class, because I was like 5'11", 5'10 and a half. They said, but we've never seen anyone as shredded you as you were. And I was on no drugs, and I'm sure, even though it was a natural show, I'm sure there were guys taking stuff. So that was a great compliment that I received from people, and I knew at that point that at least I could achieve a level of conditioning that was, up there with bodybuilders. Now I just needed to put muscle on. So that's what motivated me to come back. And then once you start eating, you forget about how miserable the diet was. So I was like, maybe it wasn't that bad. So, and the worst diet is always the first one, because you don't know what to anticipate. The second one wasn't as bad as the first one, and the third one wasn't as bad as the second one, and that's really how bodybuilding goes. You still have to sacrifice a lot, but I found that as I got bigger, I was able to eat more food too, so that made it a little easier for me. But yeah, those initial, when I look back and see those pictures when I first started, I was like, wow. I must have been delusional, but I had a vision of what I wanted to look like, and I was relentless, and I just did not give up. And I think that I say that over and over. You can't fail if you don't give up, and that's really the take-home message. These questions that I've been getting, that we talk about, the app questions, for a lot of people who maybe don't understand, I have an app called the Dave Palumbo Experience app. It's $29 a month. It's great for people who either work with me already, but people who maybe can't afford a coach. For $29 a month, you have access to all the things I do, videos, all the written articles I've ever done. I do an exclusive Q&A on the app, but probably the best thing that I offer on that app is the ability to ask me questions. So people could submit questions, and the great thing about it is when you submit a question, not only do you get an answer, but we put it on the app so that everyone who's an app member gets to see the question and the answer as well, which makes it, I think, a learning experience. So a lot of people are app members from the very, very beginning. You can go to your iTunes store, your Android store, you can sign up for the app, and like I said, it's a tremendous resource to be able to afford you the ability to ask me questions and then to go read about all the things that I've talked about over the years and find everything that I've done in one place, which is hard. Sometimes you get spread out, you can't really find the information you're looking for. This is one, it's like a library card for bodybuilding.
Second question again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, if I'm going to follow your cyclical diet you've laid out, how many days should I do each carb and fat days per cycle?
It varies. I usually start guys, especially men. Women, I like to put kind of onto a ketogenic diet pretty quickly because they do better on that diet. But with men, I usually start on some days that are just protein and fat, and then some days that have protein and vegetables and carbs in them. So technically, you're not on a ketogenic diet, but there's certain days that are carb-free. Usually, I start with a ratio of 3 days of carbs to 1 day of protein and fats. And then I build on that. So it's, like I said, it's not a ketogenic diet, but it's like you can call it a cyclical. It's really not a cyclical ketogenic diet because you're really not in ketosis, but you're on a lower carb diet, but some days you have more carbs. And what I do is I vary that according to how a person responds to that. If they're losing weight and they're still eating carbs, there's no reason to pull them. If I find that the person's just not responding, sometimes they even gain weight, I might go 2 days of just carbs, 1 day no carb. I might go 1 day of carbs, I might go 2 days of no carbs, 1 day of carbs. At some point, it might get to a point where I say, you know what, let's pull all the carbs. We'll do protein, fat every day with a cheat meal once a week, and we'll turn it into a ketogenic diet. And a lot of times guys wind up like that. Sometimes they don't. It really varies, and that's where coaching comes in. People could say, hey, Dave uses a very similar program. Yeah, but it's different for everyone because everyone has different needs metabolically, and everyone can eat different amounts of foods. And that's where the coaching comes in. You have to know what to write for each person, and you need to be able to try it out, and if it doesn't work, make modifications. You can't be afraid to change things. I think a lot of people write a diet and they become enamored with the diet, and then they're afraid to make changes to it because they don't want to say, oh, I was wrong. There's no wrong or right. Everyone's body's different. A good coach is not afraid to change things if it's not working. And that's, the way you're judged as a coach is what the end package is. If the person's in shape, in the best shape of their life, and they look awesome, no matter how they place, then you did your job.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not following us, our handle is official_RXmuscle. Let's go to B. Wayne. Dave, I'm about to have an aortic valve replacement surgery. Any tips for the best recovery and for, he says, for my return to the gym? So I guess in terms of timeline, any tips pre-returning to the gym?
The aortic valve is the valve that controls the blood flow to the body, basically. It's coming, so the blood comes out of the left ventricle, it goes through the aortic valve and out to the body. And so sometimes they become defective and they have to be replaced. Sometimes they use pig valves, sometimes they use artificial valves. Obviously, I don't know if yours is being done under open heart conditions or they're doing it under, some kind of, feeding in a catheter there. I don't know what the latest technology is or how they're doing yours, but the bottom line is letting your body recover. If you have to open up your ribs, obviously that's going to be a longer recovery than if they don't. The key is, allow yourself to come back when you start feeling good. Some guys recover faster than others. Look, I know guys, I just had a shoulder replacement 2 weeks ago. I don't even have the sling on anymore, and I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I know my limits. I'm not lifting super heavy weights. I'm not going into the gym and training. I'm just allowing my body to do everyday activities, and I think I know where my limits are. If you're gonna go and push because you think, oh my God, I can't miss another day in the gym, then you're gonna wind up setting yourself back. So you gotta be smart about how you strategize your comeback. And it's all based on how you're recovering. The first week or two, the first 10 days that I got out of surgery, I felt terrible. And I don't know if that was, wasn't in pain, but I don't know if it was just from the anesthesia. I felt tired. I felt like sleeping all the time. So you know what? I slept. Now I don't feel as tired anymore, but I'm still sleeping more than I was before because my body is recovering and is healing itself. And I think that's what the most important aspect is. You have to give your body the ability and time to heal itself. Next question, Sid. Okay, I'm going to keep talking because Sid doesn't hear me, obviously. Well, I did want to bring up one thing anyway. What did I want to bring up? Oh, I wanted to bring up the fact that a lot of people have been contacting me lately about gynecomastia surgery. Obviously, it's the new year. People are not happy with the way their chests look. Let's face it. I would say 85% of all pro bodybuilders out there have a gynecomastia. That means glands that under your nipple that are not looking good. They're hanging down, hurting their placings on stage. Everyone needs to get, pretty much everyone's going to need to get this surgery at one point in their career. And you know what the truth is? This is a cosmetic procedure, okay? When I went to get my shoulder done, okay, I went to see a guy locally who was friends with the family, and he said, you know what, I could do your shoulder, but there's a guy in Tampa, Dr. Frankel, who eventually did my shoulder, who does thousands of these things. That's all he does is shoulder replacements. In fact, he invented the reverse shoulder, which you might need, which I did need. So I went to him and got it done because I wanted the best guy to do it. I didn't want any problems. Same thing with gynecomastia. There are some surgeons who do a couple of them here and there, which is most of the plastic surgeons. And then there's guys that only do that. Dr. Blau in White Plains, New York, that's his specialty. He's worked on almost every pro bodybuilder in the business. I've sent thousands of people there over the years. He does like 10 of these things a week, whereas most doctors do 10 in a year, okay? Don't save money. Don't try to skimp. If you need to get your glands removed, okay, contact Dr. Blau, okay? Tell him that I sent you. You'll get a discount. He guarantees the gyno for life. So if something grew back for some reason because there was something that was missed in there, he'll go back in there and fix it for free. But this guy knows how to do it. No scar. Your recovery will be very minimal, 2 to 3 weeks. You'll be back in the gym training again. He's done thousands of these. This is a no-brainer for him. Don't cheap out. Okay, because you got some bargain basement guy, you'll wind up having to go to him to have it fixed anyway. Okay, and if you mention me, you're gonna get enough of a discount to offset if you have to travel to him, stay in a hotel, whatever the case may be, it's worth it. There's very few things that I always tell people that, hey, you know what, use the most convenient person, but there's certain, like my shoulder, I had to drive 2 hours to go to Tampa to get it done. I didn't care because I knew I had the best guy doing it. Contact Dr. Blau. The link to his website is on our rxmuscle.com website. You can go to his website, cosmeticmd.com. Google him. He's all over the place. He's the best gynecomastia surgeon. I highly recommend that you use him if you need to get the surgery. All right, I think we got Sid back now.
Let's go to John Nelson. Dave, we got a lot of questions about mindset, in particular during your competition days and when you train or did train during your competition days. What would you conceive in your mind right before a heavy last set to establish the intensity and anger to go all out?
I always said to myself, what would Dorian Yates do? You know, I'm like, I want to be bigger than Dorian Yates. You know, am I going to let this set beat me? Am I going to walk out of this gym feeling like I could have done more? I didn't want to leave anything on that floor. So I pushed till I wanted to die, basically. And if I had a training partner there who could push me through and help me and give me a spot, then they did that. And that's how I trained. That was the mentality I trained. And you know what? If you have that mentality that every set or your last set is your all-out killer set, you can't do 30 sets in the gym. There's no way you can generate that kind of intensity for all those sets. And that's what Dorian and I were talking about when I interviewed him. So you had to do fewer sets because if you wanted to generate that much strength, intensity, and all out, leave nothing on the table, you had to have less volume in the workout. And when I cut my volume back, I was able to do that. Sometimes, I'm in the gym even now and I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking I should do another 2 sets. I'm like, you know what? Screw that. I am going to make this set feel like it's another 2 sets. And I wind up cranking out an extra 6 reps and really squeezing hard. And I say to myself, you know what? I'm so happy I did that because I'm getting so much more out of this 1 set than if I would have done 2 more after that, just kind of stopping short of giving 100% of what I had in me. And that's really the mentality you have to have. You have to say, can I do more? Am I stopping just because, I know I have a couple more sets to do? If that's the case, then you're doing too many sets. Generate more intensity for the set you're actually doing right now.
Primal Pursuit. Dave, in your experience, what's the most effective method in blowing through chest plateaus and bringing up a lagging chest to be more proportionate? My chest has always been disproportionately weaker than the rest of my body.
People usually have a weak chest because they don't know how to train it right. They're cheating. Invariably they cheat with their front delts. They worry about getting weight up, and then what happens is when the weight gets too heavy, they roll their shoulders forward, and that's when the front delts take over. And you don't want to do that. It's a humbling experience to get under a bench press or an incline bench and stop the set when your pecs can't work anymore. And that's what I had to do. I got under there, I would use impeccable form, I'd keep my arms out to the side, and I'd squeeze, and when my pecs couldn't do the work anymore, and I felt like I had to cheat with my shoulders, that was it. I told my training partner to take the bar. And at first, I felt weak, I felt like I wasn't getting a good workout in, but after doing that for about 6 weeks, all of a sudden, I started getting stronger, and I was able to do more reps. And I realized that I was now training my pecs. I didn't worry about my ego. I didn't worry about looking like I was weak in the gym. I worked pecs. I didn't work front delts or whatever muscles you happen to be cheating with, arms or whatever. And I had to retrain myself how to work out basically. And it was like I said, it was a humbling experience because I thought I knew how to work out and I really didn't. And I credit Doug Wentz, who was one of my training partners and kind of like a guy who taught me how to train, even though I thought I already knew how to train. And, other people gave me good insights into training as well. And I had to just become a student of how to work out and how to feel the muscle that I was working. That's a thing that a lot of people don't really understand. When you're in the gym, you have to feel the muscle working. If you're working pecs and you don't feel your pecs working, you don't feel any pump or you don't feel any strain in there, but you're feeling it in other muscle groups, then whatever exercise you're doing isn't working. And that means you're wasting your time. Either change the exercise or relearn how to do the exercise properly. And that's something that is a humbling experience from an ego perspective, okay? Because everyone wants to go in there and bench press a lot of weight and impress all the other guys in the gym and impress yourself. But if you're not really using your pec muscles, then you're not getting anything out of it. So take a step back and put your ego to rest, put it aside and say, hey, I'm gonna learn and make sure that I'm working my pecs during this workout.
Let's go to Gain Mac. Dave, is it necessary to take an antioxidant supplement while on cycle?
I like, vitamins and antioxidants, all the time. They're for health purposes, V Mineralize, which is Species Nutrition vitamin mineral mix is probably the most potent, complete vitamin, mineral, trace metal, antioxidant formula on the market, because not only do I put in potent, real dosages of vitamins, chelated minerals, but we also use extracts of juice and vegetables in there. We don't use a lot of them, but I use the most potent ones, blueberry extract specifically, and lycopene from tomatoes. And that not only gives you the antioxidants and the polyphenolics, okay, but it enables your body to recover better, and it dilates the blood vessels along better blood flow too. So we're giving you the benefits of everything in there. It's really the most complete multivitamin, multimineral, I would say, on the market. A lot of people take, one a day, and I've talked about this before in rants about how one a days don't do anything. Okay, there's not enough of anything in there, and nothing that's absorbable. So, if you want to take a Flintstone vitamin and think you're getting some benefits out of it, go ahead. But the bottom line is, if you consider yourself a hardcore trainer who really values, your time and making sure that you're eating the right things and maximizing your recovery and your gains, you want to take a high potency multivitamin and an essential fatty acid supplement. The two most important supplements that you'll ever take in your regimen, and the two most important supplements that you should take for the rest of your life, really. And that's why I made V Mineralized and Omega-Lyzed from Species, because I made it for myself. It was a selfish endeavor, but you guys can benefit from the fact that I was crazy enough to make such a high potency, high quality product. And the people who take it understand what I'm talking about. But these are two supplements that you should put into your regimen every single day if you value making gains and making improvements.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com. Let's go to Kyan.kn. What do you do if you got injured during your cycle and you had to stop training, say for about 3 weeks?
Good question. I had a client who just told me that before. People think, all right, I'm injured, I stopped taking all my steroids. That's the stupidest thing you could possibly do. You're in the middle of a cycle, you get injured, and maybe you're not going to be in the gym for a week or 10 days, and then you just stop taking your steroids. So what happens? Your body crashes, you don't recover as well, you screw up your cycle, and then when you decide to go back to the gym, all the stuff is out of your system, and you have to rebuild it up in your system. Dumb. It's like the guy who on his off day doesn't eat. Well, I just don't need as much nutrients. I'm not training today. Well, dummy, you're still recovering. You never stop your food intake. You never stop your supplementation if you're in the middle of a cycle. If you do, you're a dummy, okay? Don't stop. Stay on everything as is. Same thing if you get sick. If you get a sore throat, that doesn't mean you don't take your steroid injections for 5 days. It also means it also doesn't mean you don't take your vitamins. Oh, well, I'm not using them because I'm not going to the gym. No, dummy, you're recovering. You need them. You need everything. You need the same food too. If you're 250 pounds and you decide, oh, I'm sick, or I hurt my leg, I'm not going to eat as much food. Well, you're going to lose muscle then, because your body is expecting a certain amount of nutrition to come in to keep the muscle mass maintained and to recover. You're still building and recovering muscle even though you're not in the gym. The greatest thing is, don't go to the gym for a week and then people think, oh, I lost all this size. They go back to the gym, they have the greatest workout of their life. Their muscles look dense and hard. Why? Because over that week that you took off, you were actually building and repairing muscle tissue. Even though you're not in the gym, you're still building and repairing muscle, especially on the days off. So don't be silly. Don't make foolish mistakes. Don't stop cycles in the middle just because you're not going to be in the gym for a week or two.
Let's go to Muscle Method. At what point do you believe testosterone has a diminishing return, and what is the highest dose you have ever used? So let's go with the first one.
Yeah.
At what point does testosterone have a diminishing return? And yeah.
It's hard to make a blanket statement on that because everyone's a little different. With me, I found that 1,200 milligrams was the absolute most I could possibly take, and I really didn't feel that great on it. I did better on 1,000 milligrams a week of testosterone. And to me, from the people that I've talked to and I've worked with, 1,000 to 1,200 seems to be the ideal sweet spot where you're getting the most gains and improvements from with minimal side effects. Once you go over that amount, you seem to just get more side effects. You might get a little more bloated, so you might think you're bigger and a little stronger, but you're really not. It seems like your immune system starts to get a little overhyped. Because let's face it, the immune system attacks foreign bodies. When testosterone or any kind of anabolic steroid levels get too high in your body, your immune system hyper responds to these things and you wind up getting what we call serum sickness. You feel like you have the flu, basically. And it's an uncomfortable feeling. And the reason you're getting that is because your immune system is attacking these foreign bodies. Like there's too much hormone in your body, and your immune system is not happy about it. So that's when you want to back off. When you start feeling like that, that's too much. Some people get this also when they first start a cycle. If they take too much gear the first week and their body's just not used to it, and it just overwhelms the immune system. So sometimes you got to start a little less than you normally would, rather than jumping right into your full-blown cycle. Maybe do half for the first 2 weeks and then build up to the full amount. And once again, that's an individual variable thing. But I always found 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams a week of testosterone was the sweet spot.
Let's go to Joe Nelson. Dave, we asked that one already. Z Neist. Ideal sets for mass building, 12 or standard 16 sets per body part week, and then the part B. Also, best to keep deadlift sets to 4 or more.
What was the last question? Deadlifting what?
Deadlifts to 4 or more. Deadlift
4 more what?
Sets.
Oh. We've been getting a lot of training questions today. Today's like the training day questions. Everyone's different, okay? For back and legs, I always did more sets because it was a big body. They were big body parts, so I probably did 12 to 14 sets for those body parts. Arms, I always did less. Biceps, I probably did 6 sets. Triceps, I probably did 8 sets. Chest, I probably did maybe 8 or 9 sets. For shoulders, I was probably around the same amount, 9 or 10 sets. And then, like I said, for legs and back, I always did more. And that's just because they were bigger body parts and they could take a little more punishment. So I don't know if there's, I hate giving people specific numbers because some people need less sets. Some people could do a little bit more. If you're doing more than 15, you're doing 20 and 25, 30 sets, that's too much. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. You got to find what works for you and then modify it. What I kept doing was kept reducing my sets. Okay. You know what? I'm making better gains. I'm recovering better. I'm getting stronger. I'm going to cut it back even more. I'm going to cut it back even more. And I found, once again, for arms, about 6 sets, 7 sets was perfect. For chest, less was better. Same thing with shoulders. My body grew better. And even back, when I originally did back, I would do every exercise. I would do 25 sets. I wasn't building a back for that. And so I found that, 8, 10, even maybe the most 12 sets if I counted hyperextensions in there, that seemed to be the sweet spot for me. And once again, everyone has to find what works for them. I don't want to say, definitively that this is what you should do, because for your body, it might be a little different. But if you're not making gains and you're stagnant, don't increase the volume, decrease it.
Let's go to Mishi. Dave, how do you feel about using clarified butter as a fat source in off-season scenarios?
You know what the truth is? I really don't have a problem with butter. I think butter is a pretty good fat source. As a matter of fact, I use some grass-fed butter now with my breakfast. Saturated fats are necessary in the diet, and the reason I'm eating more saturated fats in my diet nowadays is because I'm not on any testosterone. So I'm on no hormones, and my levels are pretty damn good, I gotta tell you. And I believe that, you gotta remember, all steroidal hormones, including testosterone, are made from cholesterol. So if you don't take in any saturated fats and you only eat fish oil and mac oil, it's really healthy for your heart, but you're not going to be able to make some of the steroidal hormones. And so I definitely try to incorporate whole eggs, and I incorporate butter into my breakfast meal. The rest of the day, I'm having pretty much all the healthy fats. I eat a lot of macadamia nut oil. I probably do about 6 to 8 tablespoons per day. And I'm telling you, it stokes my metabolism. My skin is good. My hair feels good. You really can't. I can't recommend it enough. It's way better than olive oil. You can cook with it. It tastes good, and that's why we import it at Species Nutrition all the way from South Africa, because they have the best soil. And we sell, obviously, the macadamia nut oil. It's very popular. You can pick it up pretty much everywhere on speciesnutrition.com, et cetera, et cetera. But that's probably the majority of my fats. But then I also eat avocados. I eat some nuts during the day. I try to vary up I eat obviously fatty fishes like salmon. I vary my fat sources, but I do get saturated fats, and I think that it has its place. I wouldn't be eating saturated fats all day long and then neglect the good polyunsaturated, monounsaturates like mac oil, but you do need some saturated fat in your diet.
Since there have been a majority of training questions in this episode, we'll close things out with a supplement question. It's from Tony DeFranco. The lowest effective dose of Test E that will promote optimal gains for a first cycle. Do you recommend a test only first cycle, then increase the dose stack other anabolics for each consecutive cycle? That's the question. Start in the new year by joining the dark side.
I think that all cycles should be pretty much, unless you're on hormone replacement. Hormone replacement is just testosterone, usually for anywhere from 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams per week. If you're going to do a cycle, you should do 2 compounds. Whether you want those 2 compounds to be testosterone and another anabolic, or you want 2 anabolics, especially starting out, a lot of guys will start with Anavar and Winstrol tabs, and that works kind of fine for them. But if you're going to use testosterone, you should definitely use an anabolic with it. How much? That's individual. You got to remember though, if you take 200 milligrams of testosterone a week and nothing else, you're pretty much just replacing what your body naturally produces. So if you're going to do a testosterone cycle, I'd recommend at least 500 milligrams of testosterone a week, and I would combine that with another anabolic, whether it be Winstrol, Anavar, Masteron, Deca, Trent, whatever. That's up to you. As a first cycle, I think it wasn't my first cycle because my first cycle was Winstrol and Primavone, but one of my first cycles was testosterone and Deca. Came right from a pharmacy in New Jersey. Some guy had a prescription for it. I paid through the teeth for it, but I knew it was good. And I got great gains on it. There was a 3-week lag before I started feeling it because they're both long-acting compounds, but I used 2 cc's of Test and Anthate, which was 400 milligrams, and I used 2 mLs of Deca, which was, I think, I used 400 milligrams of Deca a week. And I made really good gains. That was the first testosterone cycle I did, and I probably gained about 15 pounds from that. I don't know if it was all solid. It was probably about 8 or 9 pounds of muscle that I gained in a 12-week cycle. So, and this was right from a pharmacy. And I felt really good on it too, because the Deca obviously was really good for the inflammation. My joints felt good and everything like that. But if you're going to do testosterone, you probably should do minimum 400 or 500 milligrams a week.
That is going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, again brought to you by Species Nutrition and Liquid Sunrays. For Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.